Hauntcast. Haunting Halloween and horror.
Interviews with haunting gurus.
On the Bone Phone is another YouTube sensation that is sweeping the Netherrealm. It's Mixmaster DJ, aka David Jones from The Haunt at the Roxbury.
What's going on?
What's up, DJ?
Oh man, nothing but the weather, really.
All right, man. So you are originally from Cali or not? Is that right?
I am. Cali is home, man. Cali is home. That is where I've spent most of my life, and I'm what you call a naturalized Californian. I was born on that soil. So was my dad, so that's home base. That's where most of my family is. But I've been in Michigan here now since 2012. So it's, I guess you could say I put down roots, I guess.
What brought you out to Michigan?
My other half. So, her family is home based out here, but I've always been a rolling rock. I lived a few different states. California was home. I left California and I stayed in Colorado for quite a few years. And then left Colorado and made my way on over to Michigan. And I think this is about as far east as I'm going to go. I think this is where it stops. But I'll never say never.
I wouldn't go any further either. And I live in the Northeast. I'm trying to get out of here. I'm trying to head west. I'm trying to get out of here. Anyway, so you were doing a haunt in Cali or no? Were you even involved in this? No.
I wish because I always talk about growing up in California. One of the big things was Not Scary Farm. And California is kind of a weird ecosystem, and I'm pretty sure people out there will tell you it's very home haunt driven out there. The pro haunts don't really have the same weight they do in other places in the U.S. Like home haunting is heavy out there. And most of those people are the ones who created a lot of the professional enterprises out there. A lot of Knott's had a whole bunch of people who started off as home haunters that created what Not Scary Farm became, and then Universal slowly poached some of those people. So it's kind of interesting to see the history and how it goes out there. But that's what I grew up with.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been out to Knott's, and it's on my to-do list. And getting out there and hitting some of those, but and doing a tour of all the local. I mean, look, I could spend a year doing interviews every week with home haunters out in California because there's just so many to choose from. But I try to spread things out, aka why you're here. I try to get to different parts of the country that I don't always get a chance to talk to haunters in those areas. So I'm trying to I did some from the Northeast down the East Coast. I'm trying to get more Midwest. Like I say, I could line them up one after another. Helser is on my list of one of the upcoming haunts to talk to. And anyway, so I thought, hey, you know what? I need to talk to some Michigan people, some people in the That's
what you do. I was going to say, you do a good job, though. You I listen to your show pretty religiously, man. And I could say you got a really good, diverse cross-section of people from all over the country, which is kind of neat. So,
yeah, I try to hey, I look at somebody's haunt. I'm like, hey, I don't really, I don't see this a lot, so I want to talk to this person. Or, hey, this character I caught online, pretty much you. I'm like, who's this dude? I didn't know anything really about you. Then I started going, hey, you know what? This guy looks kind of, look like he'd be a great interview. So let's bring him in. Let's talk to him. And I started watching your video. Well, I was kind of already I think I found you on Instagram, and then I started looking at some of the videos on YouTube, and I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. And he was talking about, he's doing his top haunts now, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. He's gonna introduce me to some haunts that I'm absolutely not familiar with, which I always love. I sometimes,
that's awesome.
Sometimes there's a lot of people who do haunts who aren't social media whores like I am, who aren't always kind of posting and trying to get clicks and likes and all that nonsense. No, but they kind of do their thing, and they're kind of isolated from the entire haunt community. And maybe just on a local scale, like make and take groups or local clubs and stuff, but they're not They don't post their stuff. They're not on all over YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. So you don't know them and you don't come across them. And it's great to kind of find those haunters and get exposure to them so you can kind of see what they're doing. And I'm sure you'll have some interview suggestions for me after. Let's get through yours first, and then at the back end you can help me find a few others in your local area, because I'd like to hit up a few other Michiganders, I guess as you guys are called. So
be happy to.
Cool. So let's get into the haunt at the Roxbury. How did that happen then? If you weren't doing any of this in California, were you already deep in, like, you loved haunted attractions, or like how did you end up doing one when you got out to Michigan?
That's a great question.
I only ask great questions, by the way. So I just
you already are off to a great track, but it's kind of funny because that's an interesting story. I'm definitely the latest of late bloomers, and my passions are pretty mixed. Like I grew up in South Los Angeles in California, and it was not a area I would recommend on a tourist recommendation at all. South Los Angeles it's a dicey area. It's pretty rough out there. I grew up there, so trick or treating was like nobody trick or treated out there. I could tell you, we had one instance when I was growing up. I went with a buddy of mine trick or treating. I don't know what we were thinking, but we were dumb kids. We go trick or treating. We go to the wrong house, and there was a gangbanger who lived at this one house. We knocked on the door. The guy answered it. We both were sitting here with bags of like partially filled candy, and he goes, "Man, what do you little punks want?" And we're like, "Trick or treat." And he just smirked, and he goes, "Give me your bags." And I was like, "Okay." We gave him the bags. Next thing you know, the door got slammed in our face. We're like, "Welcome to South Central." Yeah. So I grew up not having that. So when I started to grow up and I saw what people did in other neighborhoods, I was like, man, I completely missed out on this as a childhood. I didn't get a chance to do this. So as I grew up and got older, I got really into seeing some of the neighborhoods that go all out. Obviously, I grew up going to haunts like Not Scary and some of the other ones, Universal, things of that nature. But when I moved to Colorado, I kind of started dabbling in it. And then I went through a really bad divorce. So I was like, you know what? I'm done. I sold everything I had and I was done. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I moved to Michigan, and the neighborhood we moved into was like Halloween crazy. And it slowly started to pull me out of my shell again. And it's late in life at this point, but that whole sickness took, and this time it hit worse than it ever did. And before you knew it, I was deep in it. I wanted to continue, as some of the people moved out of our neighborhood, I wanted to continue the tradition of keeping those memories alive for the kids growing up in our subdivision. So those are some of my motivations behind it. But it fueled even further into us wanting to go see what other people are doing and to see what's out here in Michigan, and even getting out to some of the neighboring states like Chicago, Ohio, and some of the places that are close to us. So like you said, my favorite thing to do is sit here. I can look at home haunts, go to home haunts all day, Do
you have other home haunters in your neighborhood?
We have decorators, I will say, and I'm hoping that changes, because there are some people I can tell, you probably know this. You see those people where you're starting to see the sickness set in, you're like, oh, dude, they're about to get caught by the obsession. They're going to get caught.
Get them. It's going to get them.
Yeah, because they start off with inflatables. Next thing you know, they're getting this. Next thing you know, they're asking me about conventions, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, you're about to get got. You're about to get got. And then they start taking my hand-me-downs. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So yeah, right now it's decorators. But the cool thing is I just get happy to see more people decorating and getting involved, because it just fuels the neighborhood, and kids have a whole neighborhood where they can kind of walk around and just enjoy it. So it's cool.
What is the name of the town? I was, you put two consonants back to back, and I have my mind breaks. So what's the name of the town?
It's Ypsilanti, and it's easy. I got corrected a lot when I first moved here because I wanted to pronounce it Yip, but it's Ypsilanti, like it's an I instead of a Y. But yeah, that's the subdivision I live in, and there's mostly farm towns around us. It's a lot of subs and a lot of farms around this area. Matter of fact, we live next to a couple of orchards, so it's really cool.
Yeah, it adds a nice atmosphere, to a haunt. Not a lot of people have that to work with, which is always a bonus for you. So sweet. good on you. So the neighborhood was decorating up. You were like, man, I want to get involved. You started saying, what? What was the next step that led you down the dark path?
Oh man, it was gradual. It was gradual, and it got hot and heavy real quick. We started off just, literally putting like digital decorations in our windows. That was it. It was like, yeah, just put some, just something to jazz it up a little bit. And then next thing you know, neighbors started like coming to our house, like, hey, that's awesome, And this is like when Atmos like first like hit. You know what I mean? We were throwing those decorations up and people were like, oh, this is so cool. So we would do that. And then little by little, I got a little animatronic here. I got a few little statics here. And next thing you know, one of my neighbors threw a bug in my ear and he goes, man, you should do like a trail. And I was like, what? He's like, you should do a trail. And I was like, huh. And we tried it one year and that was the end. We were like, okay, let's get into this insanity and spend a majority of our free time doing something insane. So now we sit here and make pretty much, our trail consists of kind of almost a corn maze. We have one of the farms donate, a truckload of corn stalks, so we'll basically set up these corn maze trails and the whole 9 yards. And we have like volunteers that come in and we give them credits for school, things of that nature. But it's a blast.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about if you had a corn stalk connection. Obviously, you do, and it's one of the local farms in the area. Is that right?
Yeah.
Awesome. That makes it so much easier. I had a corn stalk connection, and I know that I was just having this conversation with. When I was doing the interview with Pumpkin Riot Productions, and I was like talking about how I had a cornstalk connection, and this year I went away. I was like, damn it, what happened? So I'm like, I had it and it was gone, and he was telling me how he had one and his was gone, and then same thing happened to me. I'm like, damn, I got to get back out there. I was looking all over Facebook Marketplace trying to find someone else because that's how I found the other one. And it sucks because the one person who, when I did find them, I put their number in my phone, and for some reason, I did a backup of the data on my phone, and for some reason, I lost like all my contacts. I don't know. I run a smartphone and tablet repair shop. I do this for people all the time. So this is not how I usually do it. I was doing it like, direct, like a plug-in to my Android phone, and I was backing everything up to a thumb drive. And, but for some reason, it backed up everything except the contacts, and I don't know why. Anyway, so I lost the number, and then I was scouring all over Facebook trying to find that person. I even went out. I thought I knew roughly where she lived, so I went out to try to find the house, and I could not figure it out. I went out and knocked on somebody's door.
Man.
Are you the cornstalk person? I don't know what you're talking about. And get off my property or I'm going to call the police. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm gone, I'm leaving. So anyway, so you got a bunch of so you started off kind of with a lot of window projections, like atmosphere effects, whatever window projections.
Yeah.
Then you got some picked up some animatronics. Home Depot. What did you pick up? Or Spirit,
okay. Home Depot, and then I back when eBay was respectable before it became like some kind of charlatan ruse now, which is what it is. You would find some pretty good deals on some props that are probably discontinued or stuff you couldn't find. So I got quite a few props off of eBay, and I fancied myself pretty good at that for a minute, but yeah, that was pretty much where most of the stuff came from, at the time, So, and then we started going to conventions, and then we started running into stuff that hurt the pocketbook way more.
Well, if you go into the professional level, it's gonna hurt you. It's gonna hurt your wallet. Although the stuff will last forever, and it has a much higher resale value than anything you could possibly buy from Home Depot. Like, I actually have a couple of pieces now that I've had and I've used for so many years, and I'm like, I think it's time I part with this. Like, I've had this pop up in a barrel with this heavy lifter from DC Props in there with like a Ghost Ride production torso, and I put it's like a toxic barrel, and I got a peekaboo controller with a speaker and the whole thing, and it works great, and it's amazing. But I've been using every year for like 15 years, and it's like, I think it's time. I have to let this go. But now I'll also because everything has gotten so much more expensive, I think the resale value on it should be better as well, because the price of what that controller that mechanism goes for now is a hell of a lot more expensive than I paid for it originally. But yeah, so I'll be keep an eye out, kids. Baker will have his haunt yard sale available once again online. I think this.
Although you have a gift, you can create. You know what I mean? You have a gift, and that's you can't put a price or value on that. That's priceless. I wish I had an ounce of your talent to do what you do. So
it all starts somewhere. It all starts from just trying. Go on my YouTube channel, on the Hauntcast channel, look back at like the 2008, 2009. I have haunt videos up there for almost every year. You can go see what I was doing back in the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It wasn't good. It was like, it wasn't good, but you have to start somewhere. Over time, I've ripped things apart, rebuilt them, or trashed them and started over and did something else. And that's kind of an evolution. You start out, you watch a lot of, you look at a lot of tutorials, you watch videos, you kind of figure out, hey, maybe I should try this material. Maybe I should try that material. Let's see how this works. And you're going to get your hands dirty and just kind of start figuring things out. It does take a while, it does take a while. Because I'm not somebody who's sculpt. Like if I had to sculpt something for real, for like maybe I could do. I do keep telling myself I need to start getting into working with clay and sculpting and making molding and casting and making parts that that I could either remake or when I retire I might start a little side hustle doing some stuff. But right now it's like I just make stuff for me, and I get hit up occasionally and somebody's like, hey, could you make one for me? And I'm like, hell no. I am no. What I would have to charge you for my time to do that, because I'm like on to my next project. I've always got another project in queue that I'm on to the next one, always moving on to something. And if it's not something haunt related, it's probably something to do with my house, and I'm building nonsense in my kitchen and stuff. I'm building foolishness anyway. But yeah, so we all start somewhere. So I would say don't count yourself out there. You don't know what your talent is until you start dabbling in it, and you would be surprised how within a couple of years that your skills will grow like leaps and bounds and things.
Gotcha.
And you'll get there. It just takes just saying screw it. I'm just going to try it, and if it sucks, I'll throw it away, and if it, or I'll just put it out for the season, and I'll do, you can always rework things. That's why you can always rework it. You can always add to it. You can always rework it, redo it, or you can just say, screw it, I don't want to deal with all that extra time, and I'll just buy something because my time's worth more than my time's worth more than all the time that I would spend in the basement.
Yes.
I need to build because that keeps me sane. That for me,
gotcha.
I have to do this because it keeps me sane. If I'm not working on something, my mind gets into dark places. So I need.
No, I completely get it.
So I am much better when I'm busy. Idle hands, man. I gotta always be on to something else. So
that makes sense. Quick question for you. Because I've got a suspicion. I always say this because I have taken on some projects, but I've always tried to be. I'm Mr. Realist. Everybody has a skill set and they have a gift. You know what I mean? And they're different for everybody. You know what I mean? And so are you good at sketching?
When I was a kid, I was a pretty good little artist. I was pretty good with the pencil. I used to draw cartoons, Peanuts, Garfield, I was great, like Mickey Mouse. I always used to try to just look at something and copy it and try to get as accurate as I could. Over the years, now if I have to try to sketch something, I'm horrible. I'm just not good, and I need to take some time to just sit down. I just draw like these rough little, if I'm working on something, I might draw like a rough little something. I do a lot of stuff in like, what am I using? I'm using like Corel Vector, which was Gravit. There was another one that I was using. I got tired of paying for the Adobe suite, and I'm like, I'm not paying for that for Illustrator. And Illustrator was cool, but I found something else that I liked. It's still a paid one. It's not a free one. I've tried a bunch of the free ones, but I like to work in the vector programs because I can like design things out. It's all 2D. I know that there's much better like CAD programs where you can kind of get in and do everything 3D. I'm gonna get there eventually because I do quite a bit with my CNC machine and stuff for like other projects, not all haunt related. But yeah, as far as sketching out, not great at it. If I sat down and put some effort into it, I'm sure I'd be okay. You know, I'd be decent.
Yep.
Why do you ask that? Why?
I ask that because I feel like that's a common thread. Even if you have the mechanics of it, you know what I mean? Like some people who say they aren't good, they can do it. Like it's there. You probably it's innate. You know what I mean? You probably, just like you said, if you take the time, you could probably do it. Like I can't draw, I can't do any of that stuff. But I've noticed like people who create and sculpt and do things like that, they're able to sketch rough drafts together. Like I may see something in my mind and I've got to find somebody who can sketch it and illustrate it, and then I can kind of go, okay, that's what I was visualizing. You know, I can do that. But like I've always felt like that's a common thread with a lot of the creators and the people I see, especially in this industry that do so many different things. It seems like all of them have that because I've watched them sit there and sketch stuff out real quick. And I'm like, dude, that took you no effort to do. Like me, I'd be sitting there for 2 years trying to get this sketch. But I just feel like that's a good skill set to have to start with.
And some people are better with just like building sets and putting things together, animatronics. There are many people who have a lot of different skill sets. I first got into haunting, there was a local, it's still around, it was a mass make and take group. And we would get together. This was back in like 80, what am I talking? Not 80s, 2008, 2009, 2010. And it was a big emphasis on like animatronic, building your own prop controllers, pneumatics, all of like mechanisms, it was nothing about creative, like creating a monster or creating a head. It was just like all of the mechanics behind things. Some people are just good or much better at that, and they're like, "Oh, I'll build the prop controller out of like a piece of bubble gum and like an aluminum foil and whatever." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." It saves. It's for me. I have my patience on what I will put time in and effort into nowadays. But I'm like, and I used to try to build mechanisms for my pneumatic stuff. And I've kind of gotten out of that. I use linear actuators for a number of the really simple, slow-moving stuff in my yard, so I don't have to worry about running line hoses and having the air compressors on all month. But yeah, I mean, it's some people are better at certain aspects of the haunt game, and some are better electronics people. They're better at just doing set designs. They're not into building creatures. That's why there's a lot of companies out there, like you got your Unit 70s, your Ghost Ride Productions, that do all that stuff, because a lot of people, that's not their specialty. They can do all the other stuff. That's not what they want to spend time on or effort on, and that makes sense too. I get that.
Yep, I'm more like, give me a chunk of foam, give me a foam cutter, and I'll work with that. I did my first sign last year, which was fun. I've been trying to get with Cyclone, but Cyclone, like if you don't get to them right on time, I think they get backed up with orders, and we couldn't get the moons to line up. I kept trying to get a sign done with them, and then finally this year I said, you know what, I can do this. I was like, let me just go get the stuff. I was like, I know how to cut foam, and I just got to get some lettering done. And we did our first sign, and it's rough, but it turned out pretty good. I felt pretty good about it. And, I figure, now I feel good about doing another one if I need to. So, so I definitely feel what you're saying on that. When you get to that point where you're like, screw it, let's just go ahead and go for it. And then I've done like a lot of kind of facades, walls, mausoleum walls, things of that nature. That's kind of my happy spot. That's about right right where I fit in, I can do that.
Well, you're still creative, and you're still
Yep.
building things, and you're making, you're working on the haunt, and you are building, and I get it. It's not, not everybody. You don't have to do every single thing. You don't have to
Yep.
create everything from scratch. There are people, like I say, I've tried to get myself out of that mindset over the years. Like where. I was like, I have to do everything myself, or I like when I'm looking for haunters, I'm only looking for haunters who build like almost everything themselves. And I'm like, no, there's a lot of great haunters out there who are good at just putting things together. Who just they find the right elements, make it all work. And there's nothing to discount that. There's that, what? It makes a lot. Sometimes I look and I go, man, I wish I just did that. Like mine would be, but once again, I do need to keep busy, man. I go insane if I'm not busy. So that's why I have to keep like working on building things and trying new things. But I also, I really look at other people who do like just buy what they need and put it together, and I go, man, I really appreciate that. And and I don't look down on it. You don't have to be a purist. I think that was what the word I was looking for too. You don't have to be a purist, and a purist is kind of like building everything, doing everything from scratch, doing almost everything yourself. You don't have to do that. And once again, we're doing this for a couple of hours, one night a year. or one month, because most people set up, and if you're doing a front display, which you do as well. Now you do a walkthrough, and you also you have your front display set up, and then you have a full walkthrough out back, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
How much? What is the like the footage? Like how much do you have to work with as far as your walkthrough, the backyard?
The walkthroughs are intensive. When we did the display, last year we just did a display. We called ourselves taking it easy last year. We still put some work into it because we wanted to put some of our facades out front and stuff like that. But normally when we do the walkthrough, my goal is to create the illusion that you're back there forever. So we do a lot of switchbacks. That's where you start running into a lot of time getting the trail done. Because the first thing is designing a trail and thinking about line of sight and all this stuff. That's where your time really goes. That could be a little more time consuming and more labor intensive getting that done. So usually we will start off by getting that knocked out before we start doing anything else. We'll get the trail done, kind of set it up, and we just, work our way out from that.
Yeah. So, what do you use? Do you do it in software? How do you lay out the trail, or do you just sketch it all out?
I literally grab a pen and a paper and I just sit here and I go, okay, all right. And then I try to make sense of it. I normally will take pictures of my yard, you know what I mean? And then I'll just kind of graph it out, and then I'll kind of start thinking, okay, we're going to start this way. We're going to zigzag this way. We're going to move. And we just basically set up a trail, based on that. So it really isn't any software. It's just all hand drawn, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where we're just trying to figure out where the turns will be, where our blind spots will be, hiding spaces, all that stuff. And then sometimes I end up having to, luckily my wife does a very good job of going, that makes no sense. Go fix that.
One little tip I came up that I'll throw out there that I've been kind of doing, and it's really cheap, easy. If you have any free vector program or any paid vector program, whatever, if you do Photoshop or whatever, if you just lay out, if you go in and you figure out and you tape measure and you measure out the whole, the measurements of what you're working within, and you do everything on a 1 inch to 1 foot scale. So like I'll make so if it's something's 24 feet, I just make everything. So I'm thinking it's 24 inches, and then you can use like the little line tools to make the walls, and like you can go through and kind of map everything out, and you can make sections using, it's very simple way of doing it. I kind of do it with my driveway. And it's a way of, you can add things and you can make them almost the exact dimensions. Just think a 1 inch equals 1 foot, and you can just map everything out in inches and then convert that to feet. And exactly how, you can make sure that you have a 3 foot wide, walk space, which I think is all code nowadays, 3 or 3.5 foot,
Yeah.
trail, how long this section, 8 foot sections or whatever. I noticed that you utilize one of Home Haunter's best friends, free pallets. You use a lot of free pallets.
I love free pallets. Love free pallets, man. Jeez Louise.
They're great for making walkways, divide, you could make walls out of them and stuff. It's, yeah. Oh man. But anyways, that's just something I came across, and you could kind of, that's that way I can figure out exactly, like I can get things exact. So instead of just kind of writing things out, which is what I used to do, I started using the vector program and just figuring out 1 inch equals 1 foot. And that way I can lay everything out properly. And then I know, okay, this is how I'm going to set everything up. And then I can go out there with the tape measure and then drop everything into place. Just something I use for my front area. I do not do a full walkthrough or any type of walkthrough anymore. It's like a walk up now. So I would love to be able to do that, but then I also would have to have a lot of people. How many people help you out with your haunt?
Okay, so this is funny, and you probably can relate to this. I have a lot of prospective helpers, a lot of prospective helpers.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's me and my wife. It's me and Jamie. That's literally what it comes down to. It's me and Jamie doing it. We grind out most of the big stuff all on our own. And then people show up, and when they do, we're like, hey, go pick that up, go put that on, go glue that down. But we've normally done all the heavy lifting by then. So really it's us. So it's something we got to think about as we get older.
So you just have people who show up as actors on Halloween night is kind of, they're not helping you do anything. They're just showing up and acting. Is that kind of?
No, so in all fairness, some of them will show up like they'll be like, they want to help, you know what I mean? But, helping is I've learned one thing being a haunter, you cannot transfer your passion to someone else. I've learned that. So this is my passion. This is my wife's passion. So we really focus on getting it done. And getting help is one of those things, like I don't complain how it comes, when it comes. If it comes, great. If not, we're moving in one direction and we're not going to stop. But we will have people show up on an odd day, and they'll be like, hey, what can I do? And I'll be like, hey, all right, go cut that 2x4, or go glue that down, or put some creepy cloth up. Yeah. So we'll get that off and on, but for the most part, it's the 80-20 rule. So.
Oh yeah, no. Over the years, I've had people who are supposed to help out, and then they don't, and then once again, I'm so passionate about it. I remember one guy was like, "Yeah, I want to help out." I'm like, "Great, come on over." And I was explaining what we were doing, and I think my passion scared him away. He was like, "Fuck, this guy's just a weirdo." I'm not. He was a young kid too. He was in his he was in his late teens, early 20s. So of course he's like, okay. Okay, boomer. I'm not, and then blew me off, and I'm like, I'm Gen X, motherfucker.
Right. Yeah. Those were our parents, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. The boomers screwed everything up, but that wasn't my generation. But anyway, so I get it, and I understand. Over the years, I lost everybody who was helping out, and I'm like, I'm just doing it all on my own now. I can't be bothered. I'm not doing haunt actors anymore. I'll do a couple of pneumatic things. I'll kind of try to get a few scares. I'll give out candy. I'm still having a great time, and whatever. So you having two people, I couldn't even imagine having a second person to help me out who was really into this. I would lose my freaking shit if I had a second person to help me out. But it's it's tough. You do what you do what you can, and you bust your ass. I think it's also you look back at it and you know that almost everything was done by you, so you can take credit for everything too, because everybody. But you need for you, because you have the walkthrough, you need actors, so you need people who can can show up and help out.
And we've been fortunate with that. We don't have a problem. But I tell you what, and you probably have experienced this, because you probably go through that wall. And I talk to people about that wall you hit while you're putting everything together. You hit this wall, and you're like, "What the heck is wrong with me? Why am I doing this?" You know what I mean? And you just have that moment. You're like, "What the heck?" And then all of a sudden, a piece of your vision comes together, and you're like, "That's exactly what I was trying to do." And it's almost like adrenaline. Like now you just hit that second win and you're like, I don't care. I'll work till 10 o'clock tonight. I don't care if the sun's gone down. I'm out here. There's been times, Jamie's called me. She's like, dude, it's late. Get in the house. And I'm like, nah, I'm almost done. You know what I mean? Because I get that little second win because something we were putting together came out the way we visualized it, and it just recharges you, and you don't even think about the fact that you've spent all this time working.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you get lost, and that's one of the things I do. Once again, I do love about doing this is that the time I get so lost in what I'm doing, the time just goes by so fast, and it's just next thing you know, I'm like, whoa, it's spooky season's here. Now it's gonna. I've been working on this stuff all for months now. It's all gonna go out into the yard and actually set up, and I actually can display what I built. Well, besides from all the posting I do online, but now I can display it to the neighbors. And so once again, obviously it sounds like you got a great street. They're into decorating, so they probably welcome you with this, and they no headaches from neighbors. They're completely behind you, and things are good.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's great.
Yep. I've even told a few people who are home haunters, I think one of the things that insulates us, not that I do it for that reason, but our charitable background really plays a vital role in what we do. We work with Hope Clinic, which is a local pantry and a clinic that does free medical, dental, and vision for families that are marginalized, don't have certain income, to take care of those things. And then they have this really neat pantry that's almost like a grocery store. You walk in and get a basket. They've got everything from fresh flowers to, and they really try to make it human for the folks. And it's such a great service. So people who know about Hope Clinic around here, they love that we do that. So there are times that people, they don't even really like Halloween, but they're coming to donate and things of that nature. And I think that just causes people to get behind you, and you get a community behind you. So I've always told people, if you can find a charitable cause, I think that's something that will build more community around what you do. And it almost protects you, in a crazy way, to where people are like, they will fight to make sure this thing happens.
Yeah.
So,
now on the as far as the community, especially the haunt community, you got a pretty vibrant community out in the Michigan area, don't you? Like a home haunt community.
You know what? I say this all the time, because I feel like Michigan's my adopted home, you know what I mean? And I tell people all the time, I said, Halloween is very underrated out here. This is a great Michigan place. We're second in Ohio in haunts, you know what I mean? But you've got some really strong haunts out here. And the only thing missing is just an ecosystem where people work together. It's very fractured. I wish that wasn't the case, but it's very fractured. People don't, and we've been trying to do things and implement things to bring more people together. But I love what they do in Chicago. I love what they do in California, Cal Hunts. I love those groups because you have a network of people that work together, and it just makes this great ecosystem. And that's the one thing that's missing here, because there's a lot to do for spooky season out here, quite a bit.
Okay, so now you're not talking about the pro haunts connecting and collaborating. You're talking about home haunters connecting and collaborating. Is that what you mean? Or
I'm talking about the whole enchilada.
The whole thing, everybody. Okay.
Yeah, the whole thing. Because you know what? Honestly, we've networked with some pro haunts that get in, and because honestly, if you think about those pro haunts started somewhere, and most of them grassroots were home hunters. Most of them were
probably,
and some of the best ones, which will blow you away. So it's nice when they can network and info share and things of that nature. It just strengthens the whole industry. Because I've always said that it's not competition really, because at the end of the day, we're competing against bars and theaters and sporting goods and clubs, because at the end of the day, people have the option to do those instead of going to anything. So, if people work together, you build this network and it makes it enjoyable for everybody. So, but yeah, that there's a lot out here. And if the dots start connecting, I think we're going to have a pretty strong ecosystem out here, because everything, the bones are there. It's already there.
Now,
so.
The Motor City Haunt Group is like a collaboration of home haunters, is it not?
It is.
Okay.
It is, and I think some people are dabbling in pro. They are actually in the process, and I'll go ahead and plug it on here because I know one of the guys who heads that up is kind of starting to reinvigorate that, which is cool. We just signed up. I know they want to start meeting again. Got kind of fractured, and people kind of went their own way for whatever reason. Life happened. People got old. Some people retired out. And those are usually the key people, the people that keep everything going. Once they get out, everything starts to drop. So I think they're trying to get that on the move again, which is good. I'm happy to see because I threw my hat in the ring right away. Hey, if we're doing that, I'm
Yeah.
pencil us in.
Yeah,
So,
and the thing is,
yeah.
volunteer to kind of help out, to be that person pushing things forward, to get the group back together and invigorated. Look, I was talking to somebody, Jim Slanker, not too long ago at the Midwest Honors Convention back last summer, and he was saying, yeah, the life cycle of most home haunters that he sees, they come in, they're full of piss and vinegar. 6 years later, they're gone. So he's like 6 to 7 years is the average lifespan of most home haunters, or people who are who get in hard, who kind of get in hardcore, and then they just burn themselves out and just disappear. And then you've got your people like me and others who are in this like hardcore, as Diablo says, haunter for life, right? He always mentions that you're in here for the long haul. Now, oh, by the way, is he far from you? How far away is he from you?
What outfit is he with?
Oh,
just remind
the
me.
Diablo Haunters Hangout.
Okay. I don't know. The funny thing is I've met him. I don't know where he is per se in the Detroit metro, but I've met him and I know he's out here
Is Bob
a couple of times. He's friends with Jim, not Jim, Bob Colwell. Bob introduced me to him.
Now, is Bob Cole, how far is he from you?
Bob's about an hour and 10 minutes from me. He's in Clinton Township.
Okay.
Great guy, man. He's a great guy. I can't say enough about him. Uber talented through the roof. And he's the most humble, nice person. Like, we love going out to see his home haunt. Obviously, Infestation's fun. We've got several different videos where we got out there, and he was nice enough to take us behind the scenes on one, which was really fun and special. But Bob, and then there's also Jennifer Donahue. She's even further out. She's in Grand Rapids. Probably if you've seen Storybook.
I've got to talk to. I've got to talk to her soon. She's on my short list of people I have to talk to. So
both good people. Both her and Bob, both good people.
Yeah.
So both of them have rep Michigan with the the Canadian Hunters Association, which is pretty awesome. You know what I mean? So always I'm happy to see that. But they're Jennifer, like I said, is about maybe 2 hours. Bob's about an hour and 15 minutes from where we are.
Yeah.
So. Yep.
Now, what are a couple of your favorite pro haunts in the area?
In Michigan?
Yeah, in the state.
Here's a sad thing. We last year we spent some time. We did a series called The Haunts of Michigan, and we were trying to get out. I feel like I can't properly answer that because I literally admitted on our video that I was ashamed that we hadn't spent enough time seeing haunts in our own backyard. And I can tell you one we had last year. I'm not going to say it's my favorite, although it would be in the favorites list, but I'm going to say Niles Screen Park in Niles, Michigan that was a special experience. We went down there and it was a blast, man. We had such a good time there. And that's one of my faves. Sadly to say, I'm embarrassed. I haven't been to Erebus yet. Which I'm embarrassed to say that. People are like, wait, you live in Michigan. You haven't been I haven't been to Erebus. Haven't been to Eloise. I'm embarrassed. But yeah, so far, my favorite that I've experienced so far in Michigan would probably be Niles Screen Park, and right, I'm gonna leave it at that because there's stuff we need to check out. Now, if you ask me my favorite haunt I've been to so far, period, it'd be Hell's Gate.
Yeah, that's in Chicago, correct? Yeah,
That's in
right.
Chicago.
Yeah.
That's about a 4 hour hike, and that literally fried my noodle when I went in there. My brain melted.
Yeah,
It was just like, what is
I
happening?
think they were. I think tickets were available for Midwest last summer, and there's something happened, and I just couldn't make it work. Like I think my flight was getting in a little too late, and I was trying to coordinate with my two kids who live. I have two kids who live in Chicago, and I was trying to coordinate it, and something wasn't happening. And I finally just said, "All right, forget it. We'll go bowling." Because it was too much nonsense trying to make it work. And I was kind of pissed because I really wanted to go there. But hey, so that happens. Sometimes you just can't
Your
make it
kids
work.
owe you. Your kids owe you. You tell them
Yeah.
next time you come to visit, you taking me to Hell's Gate. They owe you
Yeah.
that.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Hitting it up. I mean, if you say it's your number one, then I gotta go. Cool. So now you didn't really do a walkthrough last year. You took it easy. Are you coming back this year with a walkthrough?
Yes. I was like kind of having a little pity party for a little bit because I think I was exhausted because we had such a busy year last year. We were super busy, and literally it started in February, and I felt like our season didn't stop. We were all over the place doing stuff. And I know my wife was. Jamie was like irritated with me at some point. She goes, "When do we have a break?" And I'm like, "We will at some point." But we were super busy. And then we got the home haunt, and we were trying to get that done. And we still had to schedule. We had to make it out to haunts that we were going to go out and film for. So we just got on this leg. And I think by the time that incident like just derailed us having to deal with that. It just was one of those things where it was just like, dude, I don't have the bandwidth for this right now. This is just beating me up. But I've talked to a couple of our neighbors, and I know I'd be miserable if I didn't do it. I'd lose my mind. So I resonate with what you say, to where it would eat at me. It would eat at me. I'm I'm 50 plus years old here, so this is going to be one of those things where they're going to have to pry the drill out of my hand and go, dude, you're done. Stop.
Oh yeah. Look, I know it. I'm in my 50s too, and I'm like the last couple of years I was really feeling how much work I was doing out there. I'm just scaling.
Yep.
My yard display is going to be my main focus, and what I do in my little driveway for Halloween night is being scaled back and keeping it simple. I'm not
Gotcha.
doing that much there anymore. I'm not worried about getting all the screams. As much as I just want to build cool shit and put it in the yard so people can ogle it, kind of a thing. It's like kind of and because that stuff that doesn't have to get rushed out the night before Halloween and then try to wire everything up and try to get everything to work like just so it's ready for Halloween night. I don't have to worry about any of that for the yard because it's all like weatherproofed, plug and play. The lights come on with the timer and everything just goes on, and I don't have to do any. Once it's set up, it's on remote control. Man, it just happens. Just as Ron Popeil would say, set it and forget it.
I love that. I ain't gonna lie, we really enjoyed doing a display because we never had a chance to just focus on doing a display before, and I really enjoyed it. I was actually excited. My wife was bummed out, but I was actually excited. Like, no, this is a whole different way of doing things, because I think every year when we do the trail, we try to make the front interestingly enough to bring people in, but we really try to focus everything in our trail. We want people to enjoy the trail. That's the highlight and that's the rock star of the show. So we don't put as much effort into our front display as we did this last year that went by. But I was like, man, that was fun. Just really trying to create an environment and tell a story with just putting things out there. It was like, man, that was fun. I really enjoyed that.
As a matter of fact, do you have a theme or backstory to the haunt?
We do.
What do you got?
We do. We do. We're Hunt at the Roxbury. That's who we are. We do a lot of things. Like I said, we're vloggers. We do this. And now our haunt itself is called Haunt at Roxbury Farms because, like I said, we're surrounded by farm towns. So the general theme of our haunt is the family, the Roxburys, had settled in this area before it became, very much civilized, and they built a farm and worked very hard. And it was a man and his wife, Jebediah Roxbury, and his wife and his daughter Abigail, and they had a profitable farm. And during a time of pestilence, they lost all of their livelihood. Their farm was destroyed. Their way of living was destroyed. There was a crone that lived in the area, and people had been known to go to her to resolve issues and to remove curses or whatever it may have been. So he approached her, even though he was hesitant and didn't feel great about it. He approached her because he felt that there may be a remedy there. So he approaches her and says, "Hey, what can you do to help me get my livelihood back? My family relies on this. This is our livelihood. So what can you do to help us, regain our prominence?" So she said she would help him, and she did. And she said she wanted something in return. And he said, "Name your price." And of course, her price was the daughter. And foolishly, Jebediah agreed and said, "Hey, whatever it takes, that's cool." So, she held up on her word. They regained prominence. The farm, once again, was abundant and they did well. And, as they went through years, they felt good and they were comfortable. And he had soon forgot this bargain he made. So, of course, at the least expected time, this crone came back and she demanded her payment. And he was like, "No way. I'm not doing that. I'm not giving you my only daughter. It's my only daughter." So at that point, she cursed the whole land and said, "Nothing ever prominent will happen here. Nothing. This will be a place of desolation." So, her curse came true, and the family disappeared. No one knew what happened to the family. They disappeared. And so, over time, the land became barren. And matter of fact, people didn't touch it because they thought it was cursed. So they burned the property down. And they, at that point, used that as a burial site for people who were unknown or John Does or unwanted people. And that became a burial site for unwanted, unclaimed people. And so my lore is that, hey, this subdivision was built. And by the way, this is the backdrop, but the curse is still real. So we have signs that tell the story, and we've got like little artwork, and people can read it when they walk in and stuff like that. So, and we use that narrative to open up what we do with our home hunt every year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I figured that gave us some creative freedoms, figuring that she made that land desolate and it was open to all kinds of evil, so we try to stay within reason. We try not to do stuff that, like, there's no clown rooms.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. So we try to stay within the realm of what makes sense. So, and it's rustic, it's farm, which is why I love pallets. Pallets look great in that environment. So, but yeah, that's the backdrop.
Great. That's elaborate. That's you put some thought into that. That's pretty cool. No, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Anything particularly new you've got in mind for this year? Are you even planning on anything for this year at this point?
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of funny. No year, and that's one thing I've prided myself on. No year looks the same. And even when we were doing the trail, I've had people come through and they go, "I never know what to expect." And I that was probably the biggest compliment I felt in that, because we always switch things up. And believe it or not, the secret to that is it's very simple. All we do is reverse the trail. But by reversing the trail, we end up having to change so many things that even though we're just flipping, we start off with you going through a corn maze or start off with you going through a cemetery. We reverse that whole thing every year, and it creates all these different changes and directional changes. So it's enough to keep people off balance. So they really don't know. Every time they walk back there, they're like, "What the heck is this now? I don't know what's going on." So, we try to keep it fresh and always do something new, but we try to keep it still within the general theme of what's going on and try to do our best to tell a story with what you see.
I've got some ideas of what I'm doing this year, but we'll see. We'll see what I was on a frenzy last year. I went like I built a whole bunch of things. I got to build Dagon is the one thing I've got to build this year, which will be a prop on the size of Cthulhu. It will be like
nice,
pretty intricate. But I've learned a lot from Cthulhu what I wouldn't do if I was to build it over again. I know now how I would do it. So this at least I go into it with some experience on, having done something like that, and now I can use it towards this year. Though I just haven't gotten into building yet because I've been working on the house.
Gotcha.
This is the time of year I got to get things done. I finally got off my ass and go, things got to get painted and worked and fix this up and that thing up. And I'm kind of doing the same shit that I'm doing with haunting. Like I just got this one, the thing I'm working on right now, and I think I'm going to have to pay someone to fix it. I bought one of those wall jukeboxes, one of those wall boxes they call them. They were the controller for the jukebox back in the day. You'd have them on in the diner, they'd be in every booth, and you could put your money in and hit the buttons, and in your song when they were in queue, you'd finally be able to hear it. So I bought one, and I bought like an MP3, like a player that you could hook up to it so that you could make the box actually work and hook a speaker and an amp up to it. And I got everything in and I plugged it in and I'm trying it out and I'm like, oh shit, there's a problem with the box. I bought the box. The guy didn't guarantee it was 100% functional, and it was in really nice shape. Like the chrome on it was really nice and the glass wasn't unscratched. And I was like, as I'm playing with it, I'm like, ooh, these 4 lights are not going on and the little mechanism is not working. And I'm looking at it trying to figure out there's so many wires. This is so mechanical, old school,
Does it have a vintage look to it?
Oh man, it originally was built in like 1957, I think. It's like
That's
so
awesome.
it is an original vintage authentic wall box for a jukebox. And I've got it so the controller works, and I've got the speaker works that I had plugged, but it's not the buttons. When you press the buttons, it's not firing the songs the way it's supposed to. So I'm looking around, and there's a guy up in the Boston area that I'm like, I might have to just bring this up and pay him a couple $100 to like fix it, whatever the transistor resistors, whatever the hell is in here that's not working. I think I need to just pay someone to fix it. I've had my haunt hat on, trying to tackle it just like any type of a project that I do for a haunt, and which is cool. You're using the same mechanics, like your brain, that part of your brain's still working. So I'm working on this, and it's still like I'm doing haunt related shit because you're still working that same side of the brain, I guess. Anyway, so anyway, eventually I got to get I'll switch when the con seasons kick in. Everything will start kicking back in, and I'll start getting back into the haunt. The build. I'll get back into the build season. Haunt season. The con season always leads into build season. So, are you doing any of the conventions this year? Are you going?
Yes. It's kind of funny. We weren't going to do Transworld. We weren't going to do it. I actually wanted to go to East Coast because, believe it or not, that's closer. Because it's Philly's about a 4-hour drive for us, and I was like, dude, it makes sense to do Philly. But Jamie was just like, no, I want to go back to Transworld because we've got a lot of friends that are out there, and I think that was the one thing that blew me away. It was our first time going last year, and it was crazy how many people we made friendships with, you know what I mean? And it was like, there was times I was trying to get through the floor, just like, I got to get video. I'm here to get content. I got to get content. And every time I start walking somewhere and I get in a conversation, next thing you know, I'm talking to somebody for an hour and a half. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I start finding like little secret places to go, little aisles, like, let me go down this aisle. I can sneak through here. But man, so many conversations, went out to dinner with people. We had a blast. It was really cool. But I saw East Coast and I thought it was super cool how well that launched. And I was like, man, we should try to get out there. I go, for one, I think it's cheaper, and
it's much cheaper. Everything's much cheaper. I was on board to do the full slate, Transworld, the East Coast, Midwest. And then Johnny Thunder was like, "Oh man, I can't do Transworld this year." And me and him always like, we go together. We get a room,
I got you.
and like we do. That's like our one time we get together, like in person. And he kind of backed out, and I go, actually, all right, so I'm just going to do East Coast and Midwest. My kids are out in Chicago, so it's a great excuse to go see them. And
Yes.
the East Coast, I thought, hey, it did really well last year. It would be great to get a booth, try to promote Hauntcast. I might do the same thing out in Midwest, but I'm definitely getting a booth, in the Philly area, going down, and Johnny Thunder lives right in the Philly area, so he's like an hour ride to the thing. So it just made it very easy, and I take vacation at that same time of year, so I'm just going to go hit the con, spend the weekend there, then finish the rest of my vacation elsewhere. So that's kind of how it worked.
I'll throw a hot tip, and if you're ever wanting to come down to the Michigan area, Michigan has a really growing show out here. It's the Halfway to Halloween show, and it's every May. They have it in May, and the show's just been growing. They're not ready to do a full weekend. It's one day. Even though last year it was insane how many people showed up, it was crazy. But the show is growing. So if you're looking for another show, that's one to jump in on. There, do it every May, and it's in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So that's one that is going to just continue to pick up steam. And the cool thing is the venue. The venue is unlike anything I've ever seen because it's at the building's called the Washtenaw Farm Council. It's an old horse stable building where they did horse auctions. So they've got, I'm going to say, about 5 connected buildings that are connected by breezeways, and they look like airplane hangars. That's what they look like, but it's all dirt ground. It's kind of, it's like I said, it's funky and it's cool looking, and it's already creepy. I'm trying to convince them they need to start doing some night activities because the place already has a creepiness to it, but it's just cool. It's unlike, you get used to seeing these convention centers, hotel lobbies. It's really kind of refreshing to see something that looks like nowhere you've been ever.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, if you watch Scare Factor, they did a video on it last year. They did a really good job. We normally cover it too, but yeah, check it out. Check it out and see what you think.
Yeah, I'll keep my eye out for it. And why don't you go ahead and plug all your socials?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, for Haunt at the Roxbury, you can catch us on Facebook. We're on Facebook under Haunt at the Roxbury. We are on TikTok for however long TikTok is still here. We're under there under We Haunt You, or you can still pull us up under Haunt at the Roxbury. We're on Instagram. And Instagram is Roxbury Haunters. And we are also on YouTube, obviously, and that's where we do a majority of our content under Haunt at the Roxbury. So that is where we're at.
Right now, you're doing you're doing like a favorite home haunt series right now?
Yes. I'm finishing up the last one, editing up the last one right now. My favorite home haunts. I do it every year right around this time. Even now, I still end up missing people getting there. For some reason, some people haven't gotten their content out still. And I'm like, dang it, man. So
are you doing only like local home haunts, or are you talking about home haunts from all over the country or world or whatever?
All over the country. Matter of fact, I got a guy out in your area that we're doing in this next, he's called the New England Haunter. And I don't know if you've had a chance to check out his channel. I'm not sure where he is in relation to you.
I think he's in the Braintree area, if I'm not mistaken. I think I reached out to him and I go, "Hey man, I'm down on the Cape where you're located." And I think he said Braintree, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
About an hour ride from me. So, so I'll have to put him on the map if I'm, have a chance to hit him up if I'm off Cape, and I take the ride to go bop in and check out his setup.
Very
Cool. All right, so that's your kind of what you're working on now. So hit him up. Hit up David Jones. He's on all of the socials. And other than that, man, appreciate you listening to the show. Always a pleasure.
Yep.
Good
Yep.
catching you around. Glad we finally get a chance to chat it up a bit.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be on the show.
Please follow the podcast. Give us a 5-star review. Stalk us on social media. Links in the description. And visit our blog page for more show info at hauntcastpodcast.net/blog. Until next time, stay scary.
I can't leave them. I can't. Yes. Go. You live.